Hello everybody, my name is Alex Murphy and I'm a Doctor Who scarf knitter. And this is another tutorial about the Season 18 scarf. I figured that I would film all of my Season 18 tutorials right now as I'm currently working on a scarf replica in the original yarn. A friend of mine has been collecting it for 30 years and finally got enough to make a replica, but he does not knit, so I am doing it for him. This tutorial will be about darning in your loose ends. As you can see here, I've done some already for today. Based on photos, the best that I can find, it looks like they are woven in about between 5 and 7 stitches at a time. So we're going to be weaving in these here. One of the things I want you to think about is that you should, when you're doing your color passes, which I have in another tutorial, you should have one tail on each side of it. So instead of it being a cast on and a cast off, and then a cast on and a cast off, and a cast on and a cast off, and a cast on and a cast off, because that's so much bulk, what you should be doing, as outlined in this other video, is starting it and carrying the yarns up the side, so that you don't have to break your yarn at all. This is how the original was done. As you can see in high-res photos, that the only parts with woven edges are at the top and bottom. You're going to do it a little different for the top and for the bottom. Because chenille has so much bulk and low stitch definition, you can get away with a little bit more than you normally could. We will be doing this sort of traditionally, where you follow the stitch line already, but it's very difficult to really see, especially when you use a different chenille. This particular chenille actually does have quite a bit of definition based on its chunkiness and how plush it is, but others will be much harder. If you're using my custom chenille from my run, that has a much lower stitch definition and it's much harder to weave in your ends. So how I like to compensate for this, which you really only have to do on the bottom, is I like to weave, when I'm weaving it, I like to use the upper row of stitches instead of the lower row of stitches. Because when you go behind the stitches in the lower row, all that you have to do is put this in between the bars, if that makes sense. When it goes behind, it's going to go right there. As opposed to if you're doing it from the bottom, you'd have to actually go in the middle of one and then out the middle of another. And I find that much more difficult with most chenilles. And it's very difficult with this one. There's no reason you need to do it. So what we're going to do, we're going to start, you're just going to run this right into the next stitch. This is just hanging loose right where it came on, and you're just going to run it through right into the next stitch. Okay? You don't want to pull it too tight because you don't want to snap it, but you do want to keep it nice and secure. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run it straight up to the top. Just the purple stitch that's sitting right there. Just like that. And again, you don't want to pull it too tight, you want it to look natural. But you see, you can't even tell because of the stitch definition. You're going to come down through the next purple stitch, and you're just going to go right behind, did I catch the whole thing? Yep, just right behind that bar. And pull it, and then you're going to go up through that stitch you just came in, and you're going to put it down through the next one, and you're just going to repeat that. It's very simple. Down through the back of the bar, up through the one that you just came in, and then down through a new one. And you're going to do that through 5 to 7 of these. You'll notice on the real scarf that the chenille that the ends did kind of start to poke out a little bit as the scarf got worn. So you want to darn a little further than you do on the standard scarf. Let's do one more, since I have the chenille for it. All right. And there we go. It's hard to see from the back, but you can if you're really looking for it, because it's just bulky. And it's nearly impossible to see from the front. But again, if you're really looking, you can see. That's the bottom. For your top row, you're going to do it very similar, but the advantage of the top row is that your hanging yarn that you're darning in the end of is actually already on the top row. So you're not going to have to do that little jog to get it up to the top row. So you're going to take it. It should be sitting out in front if you've slipped the last stitch, as I have, as it neatens up the edge of chenille wonderfully. If you haven't slipped the end and you're knitting all the way through, this will be hanging off of the side, which is totally fine. You're going to take it, you're going to move the yarn to the back, regardless of where it's hanging, and you're going to put it in this first stitch. Now, you are going to have a lot of trouble getting this through. Pull that tight. You don't want to pull it too tight. At this point, you're going to have a really difficult time finding where this should go in to come out the other side. Finding where the peg, is that what I was calling it? This little guy here. You're going to have a hard time finding that here because the edge is so bulky. What I kind of do usually is put it through one of these, of the next one, the first one that you can find on the side. And then you're going to put this up through here, that same one that you just came into. Bring it down to the new one. And then you're going to run this around the back. And now that might seem like it's going to end up being really bulky and gross, but remember that when you're done with all of this, you're going to crochet the border right into this space here, and that's going to cover anything that's here. And there's just, the stitch definition is so low that there isn't a way to determine whether or not something has been screwed up here. You literally just cannot see it. So once you've done that, there's not much that you need to do. That's different. You just run it like you normally would, through the back, up through the stitch that you just entered, and into a new one, around the back, pull it through, and you're going to do that for 5 to 7. There you are. So just to recap, we're going to do it here, another set here. You're going to take this, move it over, put it right through the next stitch. There's the next contrasting stitch. It's orange. Pull it up. Put it through the top contrasting stitch on the upper. And then through the new stitch, find your little bar. Up through the old stitch, into the new stitch, and repeat ad nauseum. I think that's all I have time for. You're going to see that this is going to happen a lot, where the force of the needle pulling on the chenille strips the whole thing. And at the top here, you're going to go through this guy. Bring it around. Go to the back. And there you go. And I like to, pull horizontally and vertically, just kind of ease that back in. Remember that you can't block chenille. Chenille doesn't block properly. So however it looks right now is exactly how it's going to look when your scarf is finished. So make sure that it's as you like. You'll see from the front, practically invisible. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, let me know in the comments, and pop over to my channel for other such tutorials. Have a great day.